GoBrave.org, a TuneIn radio station, part of the William Patterson Broadcast Network.
Broadcasting live from Hobart Hall in Wayne, New Jersey.
This is
The Innovative.
I think they're really unique.
The Fearless.
They have awesome variety.
The Kick-Ass.
I love Brave New Radio.
The Sensational.
I've never heard anything like it.
This is the one and only Brave New Radio.
The views and opinions expressed on this show are solely those of the host and guest and are not necessarily supported by WPSC 88.7 FM, station management, or the station owner, William Patterson University. Anyone wanting to offer differing opinions may do so by calling the show at 973-720-2738. Abusive callers will be rejected. Now here's your program on WP 88.7 FM, Brave New Radio.
Well, good morning, good morning. Good morning to you. It is a great morning indeed. The fact that we are still on top of the grass makes it a great morning. So glad to be with you again. If you don't know who you're listening to, because we come together each Saturday morning live from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. Actually, we're on longer than that. But we're originally slated from 6 to 7 for our interviews, and generally, like I said, the conversation gets so good we hold over, and since I have the whole 3 hours till 9 o'clock, we kind of go as long as we want to, and then I change formats and we go into the gospel music, which is the good news in song. So this is your host, Marc Medley, and the show is The Reading Circle. And you know, any of you who've listened for any amount of time, you know the ritual and the routine. I share the weather with you in the northern New Jersey area, read from 2 books, introduce our guests, share some information with you, and then when we come back from the PSA, public service announcement, if you're not familiar with the acronym, when we come back from that, we go into our interview. I apologize for last week. I hate apologizing, but I apologize for last week because we had a scheduling change last week that I was unaware of. And I originally had Allison Vaughn scheduled to be with us last week, and Allison was ready to go. She was calling out of Detroit. She was ready to go, but there was something else going on in the studio last Saturday morning. So I will get Miss Vaughn rescheduled, and I will make sure I get Allison back on here, or actually for us to have our interview, because we weren't able to have it last week because something else was going on here at the studio, unbeknownst to me at the time. I found out at the last minute, so that's why we were not on the air last Saturday morning. But everything is back in place this morning. My guest is already on the line. I'm going to get him introduced shortly. But as I said, I am going to share the weather with you in the Wayne, New Jersey area. Right now it's 63 degrees. We are working our way up to a high of 83 today. We're going to move back to 53 as a low. Expect cloudy skies, a stray shower, a thunderstorm is possible. Few clouds tonight. Again, as I said, low of 53. Sunday, partly cloudy skies in the morning will give way to cloudy skies during the afternoon. High of 61, low of 50. Cloudy skies on tomorrow night. And then on Monday, cloudy skies, high of 76, low of 62. Thunderstorms on Monday night. Then on Tuesday, partly cloudy, high around 70. Low of 51, mostly clear sky on Tuesday night, and then rounding out the forecast is Wednesday. Partly cloudy skies in the morning will give way to cloudy skies during the afternoon. High near 65, low of 47. Clear skies early on Wednesday night, but becoming mostly cloudy with a 50% chance of rain. Showers developing later that night. Well, that's the weather brought to you right here from the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center. From our 2 books, The Power of Being Thankful, The Strength of Gratitude. 365 Devotions for the Strength of Gratitude, and that's written by Joyce Meyer. For today, April 29th, Dealing with Emotional Pain. When we are hurting emotionally, we may feel angry, frustrated, or discouraged, but we do not have to let any of those feelings control us. We can manage our emotions with God's help, and we can be thankful we are not controlled by our feelings and emotions. Many people are treated unjustly. They do not deserve the pain they experience, but we can be so glad that even when we go through ugly, painful things, we do have Jesus in our lives to help and strengthen us. Perhaps you did not have a good start in life, but you can still have a good finish. Let go of the past and take a step into the good life that God sent his son, Jesus, to purchase for you. The prayer of thanks. Father, thank you for helping me overcome any unjust treatment I may have or ever will experience in my life. I trust that you are my vindicator and you always make wrong things right. That's from the book, The Power of Being Thankful, 365 Devotions for the Strength of Gratitude, out of Iyanla Vanzant's book. Until today, for April the 29th, she says, I am willing to acknowledge the ups and downs of life need not get me down. Kind of similar. There are days you wake up feeling bigger than life. You are on a natural high. Then the very next day you can wake up feeling helpless, hopeless, and worthless. You may feel that if you had the strength, you would bury yourself forever. Both of the experiences are natural, normal, and to be expected. They are what we call the ups and downs, the highs and the lows of life. There are, however, some very important things you must be able to do in order to make it through these experiences without getting bruised. When you are high, be aware of the commitments and decisions you make. Discipline yourself to avoid taking on more than you can do because you feel like you can do it all. Restrain yourself knowing that even if you remain up for the next few days, your plate may be full, your days may be scheduled. Take your time in doing whatever you are doing so that you will not be forced to redo or overdo at a later time. Do not get caught up in the high times, allowing a good feeling to motivate you to take on things which could cause you to crash. If, on the other hand, you wake up feeling low, lowly, or low down, allow yourself the luxury of the experience. Allow yourself to remember that you are human and that life goes on. It renews itself each day, offering you the opportunity to do the same. Avoid the things you do to deny where you are. Simply be. Perhaps you need the rest. Be present with yourself and what you feel for at least 48 hours. After that, pick yourself up, pump yourself up, spruce yourself up in anticipation of the next wave of feeling good. Until today, you may have questioned or dreaded the feelings of up and down that go along with being alive. Just for today, take note of where you are, or allow yourself to be there. Take precautions not to do or say anything that can convince you that this is a permanent state of being. That's for today, April the 29th, from the book Until Today, written by Iyanla Vanzant. All right. Following the format, my guest called in right on time. I looked at the clock. It said 5:55 a.m. Eastern Time. The phone lit up. And you heard me say a couple of minutes ago, I don't like making apologies, and my guest will appreciate this because he's a public speaker as well. I teach public speaking, and one of the things we teach students in public speaking is whenever you're speaking, never apologize, for, a prop or some support or your presentation or this, that, and the other. And this morning, I'm going to tell you, I'm not apologizing, but I will let you know that my voice may be sounding a little funny or off this morning because my allergies kicked in last night. I've been having the most interesting experiences over the last couple of days in terms of like the law of attraction, and that is, as soon as I say something is not happening, that's when almost like immediately it begins. Case in point, at report card night, Thursday night, this past Thursday night was our report card night. I had just told somebody, I said, this is going to be a great night. I'll have no parents complaining about a student's grade. Soon as I said that, parent walked up the step with a complaint about the student grade. So yesterday, I'm walking through, and a couple of teachers asked me, Mr. Medley, do you have any allergies? Is the air in there? Is it bothering you? I said, no, not this year so far, because mine goes in cycles. Some years I have it, some years I don't. So this year so far, I haven't had any allergies. soon as I got home yesterday, allergies kicked in unreal. Eyes watering, eyes red, nose stuffed, voice gone. So I'm saying all that to say, if my voice sounds a little bit off this morning, it's because my allergies kicked in last night, right after I just said, no, I don't have them. But as I said, my guest is on the air, and he is Stephen A. Bollar, also known as Stand Tall Steve. Stephen A. Bollar is the Senior Vice President of Elementary Programs at CSMI LLC. And as I just said, motivational speaker. And I've heard him speak, and he is dynamite. He is known for his quick wit, creative thought, and humorous personality. This awesome combination and in-depth experience has allowed him to be one of the premier educational / motivational speakers available. I can attest to that again. Stephen Bollar's educational career started as a visual arts teacher in Lawrenceville Township Schools, New Jersey. During his 7 years in Lawrenceville as an elementary art teacher, he developed an impressive art program. Stephen developed such programs as Arts Days, Hot Steppers, and Parent Portrait Night. Each of the programs allowed him to gain experience in administration and develop his skills as a leader. By the 8th year in Lawrenceville, he was a prominent member of the Lawrenceville Township staff, published in two national educational magazines, showcased in the NEA Review, and appointed Director of Visual and Performing Arts. Stephen felt it necessary to move further into the world of public school administration, and he was hired as an assistant principal at Charles W. Lewis Middle School within the Gloucester Township Schools in Camden County, New Jersey. As an assistant principal in the largest K-8 district in the state of New Jersey, he gained an enormous amount of experience. Stevens was introduced to Renaissance, a philosophy of motivating and supporting students and staff. During his tenure at C.W. Lewis Middle School, he continued to focus on the arts and other special subject areas. He was able to publish an in-house newsletter, Rotation Station, which informed other staff about the great things being taught in the specialty subject areas. Other areas of success were educational movie days, development of test preparatory classes, and the creation of the booklet Exploratory Scheduling for Dummies. Stephen was, I need that book when you start talking about scheduling. Stephen was able to leave Gloucester Township with a scheduling tool that can be used for years to come. He was able to gain a substantial amount of knowledge and experience. Stephen felt he was ready to lead his own building. His first principal assignment was at Joseph A. McGinley Elementary School within the Willingboro Public Schools in Burlington County, New Jersey. Under his leadership, McGinley developed into a true learning family. Reaching into his creative past and fortunate experiences, he led the McGinley school family to continued success. Through Stephen's philosophy, such programs arose: Mission Possible, Reading Train, The Count, Daily Mathematics, March Madness, Willowboro Thinking Caps, Academic Rallies, Heritage Night, and many more. Unfortunately, due to, we're going through that right now, Stephen, to district budgetary constraints, J.A. McGinley Elementary School had to close its doors. Currently, Stephen is the Senior Vice President of Elementary Programs at CSMI LLC. CSMI LLC is an educational management company that oversees and supports charter schools within Pennsylvania and New Jersey. In his role as Senior Vice President, he oversees the development and success of the schools that CSMI manages in New Jersey. He does this by assuming the role of superintendent for the New Jersey charter schools under CSMI management. He continues to use his talents and skills to continually improve the educational process. Stephen A. Bollar, as I told you a couple of minutes ago, his alter ego is Stand Tall Steve. And if you ever met Steve, you'd know why he's named that. Stand Tall Steve openly shares his knowledge, experiences, and creativity with others. He currently speaks throughout the country about how to think differently about schools, administration, education, and life. Welcome to the Reading Circle microphone. None other than Stand Tall Steve. Steve, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
I am better now that I have the opportunity to speak with you again.
Yes. Very good. Very good.
We had the opportunity to meet a few months ago. It was at a father conference. It was a conference on how fathers can be more involved in their children's life. And at that same conference, we met Dr. Steve Perry. He was the keynote in the morning, and Stephen Bollar was the keynote in the afternoon. And those two gentlemen impressed me so much, I said, I have to get them on the show. And for those of you listening in the audience, you know, Dr. Perry joined us in January. And now Mr. Bollar is joining us here with almost May, it's April 29th. But I was so thrilled to have both of you brothers on the show with me. Because one thing, you know, and Stephen, you're in education, so you'll appreciate sort of what I'm talking about. One, in teaching, we don't see as many men as women. I'll say it that way.
Yeah. I agree.
In our field, the majority of the participants at the teaching level especially are female. And then when we start getting into race, the numbers dwindle a little bit more in terms of African American. And then when we get into gender, African American male. And then when you get into disciplinary area, which you were an art teacher, it is extremely rare that we come across an African American male art teacher. And yet you fulfilled that role and then was able to move into leadership positions. So we're going to talk about all of that and some of the things that you talked about that day whenever we were down there at the Fatherhood Conference. So listening audience, you know the deal. You are to get on all your social media, and I mean every last one of them. I don't care which one is Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You get on all of them and you let somebody know that Stephen Bollar is on the air with me to tune in on gobrave.org. They can hear that anywhere in the world. In the northern New Jersey areas on FM radio WP 88.7 FM. I'm going to share some information with you, and while I'm doing that, you're going to share with the rest of the world that they need to be listening to the Reading Circle this morning.
Hey everyone, let's all stop what we're doing and take a moment. You see? Every moment can be kind of special. But they can be loud moments, goofy moments, dorky moments, it doesn't matter. Because every time dads like us take a moment like that to spend with our kids, well, it's pretty momentous. So let's take a moment to make a moment. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
You're listening to The Reading Circle with Marc Medley on Brave New Radio.
Yes, indeed, you are. You are listening to The Reading Circle, and I hope you just shared the information in that 30 seconds or so on all your social media sites. Let somebody know Stephen Bollar's on the air with me. We're going to have some fun this morning. This I can guarantee you. I have fun on my interviews anyway, but this time I'm really going to have fun because Stephen has a heck of a sense of humor. And again, that came out during his presentation. But I'll tell you what, in the intro just now, whenever we started talking, I was talking about, becoming an African-American art teacher. How did that all become again? And then we're going to work our way up to the book, Ideas.
Yeah. Well, it is very rare to have, African-American male art teacher. Growing up, I enjoyed art. I was the guy that was drawing and everything like that. Back in those old movies and stuff, they showed people doing graffiti and things like that. So I used to say, that's a good way for me to be cool, is to take some paper, draw like little graffiti things. And, I really took to art really well. And to actually get into art, I thought that, hey, I want to be maybe a commercial artist or do something in that vein. So, by the time I got to my senior year in high school and such, I told my mom that, and my dad, I want to go into commercial art or something like that. And I decided I wanted to go to start applying to schools. And the one place I was going to apply to was Kutztown University. So, one day I said to my mom, I'm going to go outside, I'm going to shoot some hoops, because I had a little basketball court out front. And afterwards, I'm going to come back in and we'll start working on this application. She said, no problem, okay. So I go outside, I'm shooting around a little bit, and these two kids from the neighborhood, I remember their names. Their names were Steve and Kevin. I guess they were maybe 8, 9, or 10 years old. So they ride their bikes around. They're like, can we play? I'm like, yeah, come on. So it's like you two versus me, and I can only shoot with one hand, and I'll only shoot behind this thing. And we played out there for like 2 hours. Man, we had a blast. After we're done, I went inside, I got them some Coke or whatever like that, little sodas, and then they rode their bikes off. I came inside, I said to my mom, I think I might want to be an art teacher. My mom said, oh, thank God. Oh, my God, thank goodness. I was like, what? Because you've been a teacher your whole life. You've been a camp counselor. Whenever you get around kids, you gravitate to them. I said, well, why didn't you tell me? And And she says, I couldn't tell you. If I told you that, you would have ran off and did something else. And she says, we were just going to let you be, and, hopefully you find your way. At least you got into art because you're really good with art. I said, all right, well, I think I really want to do this. And so luckily the school I applied to had art education. When my father came home, my mom said, tell your dad. I told him the same thing, and he said, oh, thank goodness. Oh, my goodness, I'm so worried. I said, you too? He said, yeah. He said, we've been talking about this for years. I'm like, oh, my God, so that realization kind of came about, and it's true. I've always been a camp counselor. I've always gravitated to kids. I enjoy youth, everything from the real little guys up to the high school, and it's just something I've always liked to do. Being an African-American male in that area, once I got out of college, not for nothing, I was highly favored. I mean, I had quite a few job offers, which is very
I'm sure. I'm
yeah,
sure.
I mean, you have to think about that. I mean, in a lot of public schools, there's only one art teacher, and a lot.
That's correct.
So it's not even like there's a lot of those jobs around. So I was very blessed. I was very fortunate in that aspect. So I started teaching Lawrenceville, kindergarten to third grade art, real little guys, little tiny kids. So. Yeah, it was something else. And very interestingly, and I don't know who knows about Lawrenceville School District. It's a predominantly white district,
right?
Like that here and everything. And I mean, I got ridiculed within the black community for not going to a black school. And why didn't you go back? Why, what are you doing? And I was like, well, they offered me a job. It was a good salary, and not for nothing. Why can't white kids have a black role model?
That's exactly right.
Am I missing something?
That's exactly right.
Am I missing something? I used to get it good, man. Oh, I used to get it good from for the black community. Like, you need to do your part and everything. And I said, I am doing my part.
That's right.
So, but yeah, that's my step into art education, and I loved it. I enjoyed it immensely. It's like throwing a party every 40 minutes. It's, the kids come in, you pull out all this stuff, you make art and paint and clay and everything, and then you pack it all up, and the next group come in, you pull it all out.
Start all over again. That's right.
It's like I said, it was an amazing job. Doing a party every 40 minutes, that's what I call it. And it was good. It was good. I ended up having a mural painting company out of that. The school where I was teaching, they wanted some murals painted in the hallways. And they came to me, do you know any mural painters? And I said, well, you're looking at one. I could do it. I'm an art teacher. And they're like, okay, well, if we paid you, that's all I needed to hear. So, I painted some murals in the school for them. And a few parents that came by said, did you paint that? Yeah. Could you do that in my house? Well, yeah, sure. So
exactly.
Because it was around the time that HGTV started coming out, and everybody wanted a mural in their house, because that was big stuff. So
right.
I started going, and ended up with a mural painting company for about 7 or 8 years, going into people's houses on weekends and painting murals and stuff. So being an artist, it was fun. And I'm always going to be an artist. I'll always have.
Now, listening audience, I really understand this is radio and it's not television. But if this was television and you had the opportunity to see Stephen, you would see the irony of this conversation that we're having. And not to mention the myth busting and the stereotype busting. Steve is, Steve, what are you, 7 foot?
No, 6'7".
6'7". Okay, almost 7 foot. 6'7". Now, those of you who know listening audience, particularly if you're African American, and for that matter, if you're Caucasian, you know where I'm going. 6'7" African American male. What comes to mind? I don't have to say it. Basketball. Because I'm sure everywhere Stephen goes. So first of all, if you saw him, you would think he was an NBA player or former NBA because he kind of has that look, if there is such a thing as a look.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Right. He's tall, slender. He has that look. So I'm sure when he's walking through airports and when he's walking up and down the street, folks are wondering, did he play basketball? Is he from the NBA? See, I know you had the experience, so you could talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, it's I look, walk. I mean, I am a basketball player. It looks like that's just all I'm about. I mean, I'm 6'7", bald head, slender. You know, I work out a lot. It's you know, and to be honest, not for nothing, I like like a sweatsuit. You know, it's comfortable for me, but I look like I'm ready to jump out into the court anytime. But yeah, it's just the nature of who I am, and I mean, now, don't get me wrong. I did play basketball.
I got that. But, I mean, the stereotype is that every African-American male is a basketball player or plays basketball.
My brother, he's 6'6". He can't play to save his life. I mean, it's terrible. That's just not him in any way whatsoever. And even my father, he's 6'6". It just wasn't his thing. He wasn't athletic enough. He tried. It just didn't work out. Wasn't his thing. Not coordinated. But it is. It's a stereotype. I'm a walking stereotype.
Yep.
You look at me. I could say on a normal day, I get asked at least once a day by somebody, you know, you play basketball, or did you play basketball? I guess you get a little older. People say, did you play? What you trying to say? You know, did I play? Hey, what you mean? So,
that's right.
The first time somebody said to me, did you play basketball, I took a step back, looked at them. I was like, oh, my gosh, am I at that point in my life? But it's all good.
So what you mean, did I play? I still play.
Did I play? I still play, man.
That's right. What you talking about? But yeah.
I'll tell you something right now.
But yeah, if you were to see Stephen, you would see why we're having such a good time with this, because again, the automatic assumption is that if you have some height, you're African American, that first off, not only do you play, but you can play. That's the automatic assumption. Not that you do, but you can. And I'm 5'10", but even just the fact that I'm African American and 5'10" is kind of considered a little tiny bit tall. People would ask me the same question. I was like, no, actually, I'm not good in basketball. I play racquetball. So they would look at me like, racquetball? First of all, half of them didn't know that. I studied it when I was in college, and half of them were like, racquetball, what's that? So anyhow, I know exactly what that is. Had some interesting experience with back because my aunt was married to is married to George Gervin's cousin. George Gervin was like legendary in the 60s and 70s or what have you. So every time, at the time, whenever the Spurs would come play the Knicks or the Nets, we'd go to the game and then hang out with the players afterwards.
Right.
And so now, mind you, I'm 5'10". Around these guys, it's like 6'7", like your height, 6'7", 7 foot, and what have you. We walk into the restaurant, we're all sitting together, and these guys come up for an autograph. And so I didn't take the pad because I'm not a player. And these guys, I mean, they were going to make me be a player. I said, I do not play. Oh, yes, you do. You just don't want to sign. I said, I'm not one of the team. I'm not one of the players. Yes, you just don't. Give me the pad.
Yeah. Oh,
right.
I have signed more autographs because it's just not worth the fight. It's not worth the fight. And I'm a confident person, so I walk with confidence. I walk with direction. And so I carry myself in a way such that I'm, I feel like I'm in charge. I do. So therefore, that coupled with my look. When I go to the airport,
I know
of a speaker.
Yeah, exactly.
You travel a lot.
Right.
And sometimes I can't make it to my gate. It's no lie. I've been walking. Excuse me. Yeah, who are you? I'm Steve Bollar. Can I get a picture with you? I don't even say nothing no more. Yeah, come on.
That's right. And again, listening, if you saw him, you know exactly what we're talking about. But that is also a part of his business. When you hear, we said the alter ego of Stand Tall Steve, that's a part of his message. So that's why I'm making the emphasis on that as well, along with kind of hopefully busting some of the stereotypical myths. And just the fact that you said you were art teacher to the kindergartners, I'm sitting there picturing that. I mean, we're talking like these tiny kids and you being that tall and African American. I guess.
You know what I would do? At the beginning of school, when I was an art teacher, I had my art room. I was very fortunate. I had actually art rooms, but sometimes you have to be art on a card.
That's right.
Which is part around. So I had the actual art room, and I had very sturdy tables. A parent, years ago before I got there, built these very strong art tables. So first day of school, I would stand on top of the table when the kids would come into the classroom. And my head's almost in the ceiling. I was like, come on in. Good morning. Good morning. They're like, oh, my God, he's a giant. I'm like, there was, just to get the effect. It was fun. It was good stuff.
I'm sure. But you said something that was very significant whenever you were talking about how you felt as a teacher in the classroom. And that was every 40 minutes was like a party. Because as a principal of a school who serves with teachers and students, for me, that's the same way I felt because I was a language arts teacher. And that's the way I felt. The same way I couldn't have described it better. Every time the kids walked in the room, it was like a party. And for me, it was books. It was reading and writing and so forth and so on. Right. But if every teacher had that kind of passion, which I believe they start out with, and over time they may lose it. But if everyone had that passion and that feeling of each new 40 minutes was a party, I think our kids would move even further. And I noticed in terms of academic achievement, and I noticed in your bio, the different programs and the creative, and I see the creativity came from the art, but the various names and programs that you had in the bio, like the various things that you started. But I mean, it's those type of things that keeps kids engaged.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the mindset that I had from the very beginning. And the way I kind of thought of it is that I'm the host of a party. My job is to bring them in. And yes, they're going to learn. Yes, you got to keep safety and all those other things in the classroom. But, let's go. I mean, you come in and have that energy,
right,
and the kids are expecting that, and they want that. I mean, one time I remember I was sick. I just wasn't feeling well, and I came into work anyway because, first, second, third year teacher, whatever. I got to come in. I got to go into work.
Right.
And my energy level just wasn't there. The kids were, Bollar, what's wrong, man? You just weren't the same.
Right.
And anybody else, I probably just would have been the same as a normal teacher. But that just wasn't me. That wasn't the energy that I was used to and the energy that they were used to. And that's, you're right. It's just have that energy in it.
It makes
thought about school in that way all the time.
Right. And it makes such a difference. I mean, because I'm looking at your programs, Mission Possible, Reading Train, The Count, March Madness, even the Thinking Cat, even the fact that you put names on it like that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you got to title it. Because here's the thing. Like, as a building principal or whatever that I was in, I purposely told my staff, I said, if you come up with an idea of something that you want to do in your classroom, or whatever it is, something new or creative, go for it, but put a name to it. Always put a name to it. I said, even if you're not that great at creating fun, witty names or whatever, put a name to it. I said, the reason is it builds tradition in your classroom.
Right.
It builds, because what happens is, 10 years down the line, when those kids have left, hey, remember Miss Johnson? What was that thing that Reading Train. Oh, yeah. That way, it puts a name to it. It makes a memory. It tags a memory instead of just saying, "Oh, that thing that we did sitting on the ground,
right,
reading in the hallway." No, it puts a name to it. So it kind of builds your legacy. It builds that tradition.
Yeah, in terms of the energy, I had that experience yesterday. I walked into a language arts classroom, and the teacher was teaching a lesson on it was an essay, and the kids had to kind of figure out the author's point of view in terms, because the author says that there's a positive side to video games. In other words, the emotion that is created from video games, there's some positive to it because everybody always rags video games. So the author gives a different perspective. And so they're going through the story and having the teachers asking them questions very cerebrally, very college-like class, and the kids are just kind of sitting there. So now I come and I said, do you mind if I take this over? She's like, no, please. So I go, and I literally, Stephen, have a blast with the kids in terms of keeping it moving, talking very quickly, calling on this one, calling out, giving personal examples. I shared with them over spring break. I said, let me help you understand what Mr. Medley did his entire spring break. He played 2 video games, Flight Simulator X and American Truck Driving Simulator, whatever it's called. By the time I finished with the lesson, the kids got what the author was trying to say, and I could feel the energy. So I always share with teachers, the kids will engage if you come through with the energy. If you come through and keep it excited and keep it moving. They struggle with lecture only, and they struggle, like I said, right. They struggle with the lecture only and the college thing. But so it really does make a difference. And to your point about being sick, I tell people all the time, your worst student, the student that gives you heck every day. One thing about kids, they know sincerity. And your worst performer, your most misbehaved child, they perceive when you're sick, they'll tell the other kids, leave you alone. Yo. Leave Mr. Bollar alone. He don't feel well today. Now, this is a kid that gives you heck any other time. But
you looking at him sideways, what did he say?
Right. That's right. Oh, Mr. Bollar ain't feeling well today. Leave it. They know, and they really will respond that way. So I want to, as we shift into this segment in terms of, okay, we're now working through the schools. We're teacher. You've now gone into administration. When did you make the pivot to motivational speaking and author?
Oh, well, it was very interestingly. I love to talk anyway, so that was always just kind of out there. And I went to a conference. It was a Renaissance conference. I mentioned in my bio intro about Renaissance. But I went to this Renaissance conference, which is all about school culture, climate, and motivation. And it was in Minnesota. So my wife wanted to go because the Mall of America's out there. So I was like, all right, come on. We're both going to go.
That's right.
Yeah, just before kids so we get up and roll out. So we went to this conference out in Minnesota. At the very end of the conference was a motivational speaker. His name's Willie Jolly. Willie Jolly, absolutely amazing speaker. So while he was speaking, and usually I just listen, take some notes and say, oh, that was good, and, maybe take something back. I kept sitting there looking at him like, I could do that.
Exactly.
I could do that. I mean, the whole time, I was listening to what he was saying, but I was also watching how he was doing it and how he set up a story, how he brought home a point, when he got soft to talk, when he got loud. I was analyzing him like crazy. So after it was over, everybody goes out to the, into the hallway area. They shake his hand and buy his books and materials, whatever like that. So I get in line. I get up to him and I said, how do you do what you do? I want to do what you're doing. And he's, stay focused. Get your story together. I said, whoa, don't give me lip service. I don't know. I said, I'm serious. Right. I need to know how to do what you're doing right now. And he said, you're serious? I said, yes, I'm very serious. He said, well, you need to go to the NSA National Conference, National Speakers Association. I said, all right. He says, look, I got a lot of people in line. Step over to the side. When I'm done, I'll come over and I'll talk to you about it. I said, all right. So my wife was with me. She said, all right, come on. Wait on the side. So I waited to the side. He comes over afterwards. He says, all right, you need to go to the NSA National Speakers Association Conference. I said, all right, where's your little conference? It's next weekend in Orlando. I'm like, I spent a bunch of money to get out here to Minnesota.
That's right.
And within a week, I got to get down there, and I'm not registered. Obviously registration has to be open.
Right.
So he said, look, this is my email address. If you want to go and you're serious, you email me. Let me know when you want to go. I can still get you in for registration, and we'll make it work. I said, all right, thank you very much. Shook his hand, took some pictures, whatever like that. Went back to the room. I'm sitting on the edge of the bed thinking, well, this isn't going to work. It's just not. I'm like, well, it was worth a shot. My wife says, well, what do we got to do to get you there? I looked over like, are you serious?
That's right. Wow.
You could do this. Really? You could do this. Okay. All right. Let's do it. So my wife, she used to work in the travel industry a little bit. So she got back home, jumped on the computer or whatever she needed to do. She got me a flight. I couldn't stay. I emailed Willie Jolly. He got me reduced registration, significantly reduced. Actually,
wow.
Which was good. She got me a flight. We didn't have enough money for me to stay at the beautiful Grand Hotel, so she got me this other little motel to stay in. Little tiny car. I mean, I could barely sit in that little thing. Get around. So I headed on out that next weekend down to Florida to this thing. And my wife's like, oh, how's the car? How's the hotel? Baby, it's beautiful.
I know that's right.
Oh, that place was jacked up. It was some dive. Oh, it was terrible. I told her, baby, this place is beautiful.
I know that's right.
So, I went to the conference. I met some amazing professional speakers. Those who are in the speaking industry, they would know, certain names. John Austin before he passed. And, I met Ed Robinson, Walter Bond, Les Brown. I mean, I met them all. It was amazing. And, I came back with just pages of notes of what to do. And that's got me started. I got back. Usually at times when you go to a conference, you have all these notes.
Right.
And then they just sit there. No, I dissected all my notes,
right.
Put them into categories. I made up a plan of action. I started working on my speech. I started gathering my stories, and I started working on this. And my very first speech was at my old high school where I graduated from. My father worked there as a teacher's aide. He was just an aide, and
right.
He worked with the Multicultural Club. And he says, well, if you're doing this talk, come and talk to the Multicultural Club. I said, all right. So I got my first free speech, not paid anything.
Right.
So I went down there and I talked to the Multicultural Club. It was pretty good. My dad even said, it was all right. It was all right. He's my dad's an honest guy. And he was a minister, so he used to,
right.
Every Sunday he was
right.
So, he it was all right. That was my first one, and I just kind of built it from there. And I've now been speaking professionally for 16 years.
Oh, good for you. See, the question I ask is twofold. Ultimately, that's where I'm headed as well. This I know. And people ask me, "Want to be superintendent?" I said, "Well, if I get there, fine. But if not, my ultimate goal after principalship is to kind of travel the country, motivational speaking." And there's a couple of you that I know. I don't know if you know Baruti Kafeli or not.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I know.
So Baruti, I know him. Now that I know you, that we've connected and talked. There's another brother that's out there now that's headed that way, Jamar Mills, and there's some more. Of course, Dr. Perry, Steve Perry. I'm having my opportunity to meet all of you all one way or the other. And most of the time, the show is kind of like the hub of it, or either a conference, like you said. But ultimately, that's where I want to go as well. And I'm kind of doing the same thing you did with Jolly. I'm doing with you right now. It's
that's all right. Yeah. Yeah.
Like if that's what I need to do, that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, Principal Kafeli, it was the point I was done. I was like, I'm done with this. It's not gonna work no more. And he pulled me back in. Man, you better stay focused.
Right.
You got a message. What are you doing? Kind of a thing. Let's go. You got this. He refocused me to get me back into what I was, because I really was. I was done. I was like, I was tired of speaking. I ain't getting no paid gigs. On top of this. But yeah, it got me back in and really, really worked it well.
That sounds like him. Yeah. That sounds like it. Every time I say, yo, Baruti, you still bringing the fire? Yeah, man, I'm bringing the fire. I'm bringing the fire. That's his kind of like tagline about the bringing the fire.
Yeah.
And so again, that's and it is so needed. And again, because of the populations that we serve, like you said earlier, in terms of role modeling, regardless of the group, whether it be white, black, Chinese, Asian, whatever, they still need to see each group as a role model. It doesn't necessarily have to be your own. So the fact that you men and women get a chance to travel the country and folks see, because the bottom line is every African American who's taught is not a basketball player.
Right.
You're traveling the country talking about education, which again is so needed, because I work with kids every day trying to help them understand, seriously, when we tell you your education is your ticket out, it is your ticket out. And if you don't get this ticket, you're not going to have any options. That's all we're trying to give you is options. Like if you choose that you want to stand on the corner, well, at least you made that option with some education. But it's another thing not to have the option. And that's all you can do is stand on the corner. So the fact that you all are traveling, helping people understand education. And the other thing is you're helping also teachers understand, the audiences that they serve. Because a lot of times you may have the various racial groups that really may not understand, okay, how do I deal with this little black boy? How do I deal with this little busy black boy? How do I deal with it? So you all give them a different perspective as you go around the country and travel and talk, regardless, white, black, whatever. Mm-hmm. So that's a wonderful thing as well. So then you now, because I noticed and I guess is that a part of it as well as to be published? Because I know like Baruti has his books out. There's other is that a part of it? Because I know now you have ideas, which made very much sense to me as I read your bio, with such as thinking caps and the reading train and I can see you're like bubbling over with ideas. So let's talk a little bit about that and how it all connects.
Well, it does. One of the things that I'm very, very proud of is the level of creativity that I have. You know, being an art teacher, my minor in college was music. So, you know, I'm all into the arts and everything like that, and I think very creatively. And then spilling that over into administration, as you know, in administration, sometimes it's hard to be creative. You know, there's a lot of red tape. There's things that you just can't do, and, you know, and people look at you strange and also. But I've been very fortunate in that I've come up with a lot of these creative ways to really connect with students, connect with teachers, connect with the community. And as I had mentioned before, I put names to everything. Right. I got to put a title to it. So within my speaking, one of the things, specifically when I speak to teachers and educators, I usually wrap things up at the end, and I talk about recognition and creativity, and I share a few of my ideas. Well, over the years, I have collected well over 200 different ideas that either I've done or when I go out and I speak, I always ask them what creative things that you do. And I say, oh, that's good, and I write it down. I walk around with a little notepad in my pocket all the time, and I'm constantly writing down these great ideas because I like to be a conduit of sharing ideas to other people on how they can do certain things and how you can be creative, how you can think different. And it's interesting, as you know, just in education now with the Common Core, it's all about thinking things through. Right. It's all about, the thought process, project planning, working with others. Right. Being creativity. They want to see that. So this is what I've been doing for years. So with all these different ideas, I put it into a workshop, into a presentation. So now not only do I have my keynote, I also have my breakout sessions and things like that that are all ideas. So I call it ideas, and basically what the presentation is all these different ideas. It's very quick. It's rapid fire. I'm sorry, I don't take questions because I got like 200 plus ideas that I got to tell you within an hour. So I'm just boom, 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 and the people writing real fast. It's great. So I've been doing this presentation for a while, and then I got a call from Johnston's, the company that made caps, gowns, rings, and things like that. They had, as I mentioned, for the big Renaissance conference. So was it last year? Year before last? Year before last? Last year in about April, they called me and they said, your ideas, we want to put your ideas on the main stage at our conference. I want you to be a keynoter at the conference, and you do your ideas. Now, mind you, I've always done this in a little breakout, so I'm going to switch this and turn it into a keynote. I said, no problem. Sounds good. All right, we're good. All right, we worked it all out, talked about it on the phone. I said, this coming summer in July, okay, great. And then, just before they hung up, I said, you know what? I've always thought about putting this into a book. Would you guys be interested in working with me on that? Yes. I mean, that's how fast they answered. Yes. We could do that. That'd be great. Yes. I would love it.
Wow.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's right.
It's one of those things you stand in your room, your hands are out like, wait a second, okay, what's this?
That's right.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So they said, all right, let me, what do you think? So I told them, I have all these ideas, and you just write them all out, put them in a book, make it like a reference. Okay, let me talk to our people, and we'll get back to you. I said, all right. So they got back to me in May. I said, okay, we want the ideas book. We want to debut it at the conference this July. I'm like, it's May. So they said, could you have the entire book done by June 13th? And it was like May 12th. I was like,
yeah, okay, yes.
This is a book deal, man.
Right, that's right.
You know what I'm saying? So, yes, I can. So, hung up the phone, and I looked. I said, I have 1 month to write a book. Now, you teach English language arts writing. You know the process of writing.
That's right.
So every night I was at kids go down to bed. I'm typing away. I'm just typing every idea, everything that I have. Just, I've been presenting this. I didn't have this necessarily written down anywhere. So I finished it June 13th. I pushed the send button. Boom. Got sent, and it was ready by the conference July 17th. So,
as I sit here and listen, it's amazing And it shouldn't be, but it is, because I mean, it's a fundamental. But it's interesting how opportunities come about by just talking, by just sharing with people what it is you would like to do or where it is you'd like to go, how the doors begin to open. But a lot of people don't open their mouth. That's why I'm saying it's amazing, but it's really kind of elementary. Let somebody know where you'd like to go, what you want to do. You'd be interested to see what the responses are. So, okay, so we have the ideas there, which is, again, it is excellent because ideas, and like we were talking about the energy earlier, so that's what engages and connects the kids. And so now you have the ideas that you have the opportunity to share, as well as like the keynote that we heard at the Fatherhood Conference, because I want to talk a little bit about how important it is for fathers to be in the educational process. Because I just heard you say your dad was a minister as well as in the school system. I know when I talked to Dr. Perry, we talked about this whole notion of the fatherhood, and that whole conference where I met you all at was about fathers, and your presentation about the whole family experience and everything was funny and at the same time true. So let's talk a little bit about that as well. Your experiences, with your upbringing, having dad around, and serving the kids that you served that may or may not have had dad around, and the importance of that. And then I want to work that into your whole stand tall, your whole thing about regardless of what you're going through, still stand tall.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I was. It sounds weird to say, but I was fortunate. I had my mom and dad.
Right.
In the house, which shouldn't be. I shouldn't have to say I'm fortunate.
Right. And I'm the same way. Looking back on it, I had the same experience, and I thought everybody did, and realized later that they didn't. That it was uncommon, like you said. It was like wow. Fortunately.
Yeah. Fortunately, I was. I had a mom and dad. And, I grew up in Salem, New Jersey, way down the bottom part of Salem down there. And the way I like to call Salem is, you're driving down there, you got country, good. Country. Like out of nowhere, they got all these blacks running around. So where did this town come from?
That's exactly right.
So I grew up down there in Salem. My father, college educated. He has a degree in mathematics and physics with a minor in religion. He grew up in West Virginia, went into the military, and then through the military, he ended up going to Marshall University and everything like that. My mother has a degree in nursing. She was one of the first African Americans at the Cincinnati School of Nursing. Graduated with honors at the top of her class. And they got together from a mutual friend's wedding. There you go. Magic happens, so to speak.
That's right.
Yeah. So I was very fortunate. It's my older brother and a younger sister, and I'm the middle child. I was the guy in the middle. But I was very fortunate that I had educated parents who understood the value of education. They weren't the ones who were tyrants. Like, you must do well in education. You gotta, you bring home anything low. I was a BC student, straight up. If BC was all right with me, because my brother was FD. So I looked all right. In hindsight, and in later years, I took testing and stuff, and I was on the gifted spectrum, but I didn't put forth effort.
Right.
So, all those things. And also, I'm dyslexic. I have dyslexia. And at the time, growing up, that wasn't very well known at all. About dyslexia. I just a little segue, if I could. I found out I was dyslexic in college. At the freshman year of college, I had an English class, and no, not English. I'm sorry. It was an art. It was art theory class, and so we had to do some writings and whatever, right on the spot and everything like that. And my teacher, afterward, the next class, she pulled me aside, Dr. Burkett. I'll never forget it. Steve, your ideas and everything are amazing, but you can't write. It's, your spellings and this, that, and the other, and she's like, you're dyslexic. I said, what'd you say about my mom? I mean, I didn't know what she was talking about. I said, what? I'm the what? She said, you're dyslexic. And I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. So she got me an appointment at the student center, And I went there, and I guess they had some seniors who were doing their, internships or whatever like that, and they tested me, and I'm dyslexic. I'm straight up dyslexic. And so they were like, how did you make it this far? And you had no idea you were dyslexic.
Right.
I just did what I had to do, because I got to college straight up on my own.
Right.
I made the minimum SAT score, but I got in.
That's right.
And, it turns out that I was dyslexic. So, they gave me some tools and things to help me and something like that. But, going back to my main point in growing up, in school, I had my struggles, as I said, being dyslexic and not knowing it. And to be honest with you, in hindsight, I'm glad I didn't know. I'm glad I didn't know that I was dyslexic.
Right.
I may have used that as a crutch.
As a crutch, right. That's right.
Yeah. So, going through school, my parents were, we lived over in on 9th Street in Salem. And 9th Street connected the avenues. So there was Johnson Avenue, Carpenter Avenue. There's all these avenues in Salem. And the avenues are where the white people live.
Right.
And I lived on 9th Street. It was myself, my family, and then the Hendersons, who lived right across the street. They were black. Other than that, no other black people lived on 9th Street. And the friends that I had in Salem, they were not allowed to go over to the avenues. So they weren't allowed to come over to visit with me.
Right.
Because, it's over there in the avenue. I can't go over there.
Right.
So I used to have that issue, and I went to a private school, actually, from first grade through fourth grade. In fifth grade, my mom and dad would switch us over to the public school. So, on top of that, I had this whole private school thing with me and everything like that. So it was a little difficult trying to connect and, with other kids and, make friends and make relationships.
Right.
That aspect. But it allowed me that opportunity to see things a little differently, and growing up and, who it is that I interacted with. And so, I had my white friends and then I had my black friends and, you kind of juggled that whole piece together. But it kind of developed me into who it is that I am now,
Absolutely. And I heard you say you were a music minor, and I'm trying to think. I remember at the presentation, what was it, violin? Trumpet. That's what it was. Trumpet. Yeah. That's right. Okay, trumpet. Because I was thinking, I said, well, we have a lot in common because I play keyboards, I play piano. And organ. And so I understand, I definitely know where you come from in terms of the music minor. But in terms of working in education, because this is where every experience you've ever had feeds into, like you just said, takes me into what I am today. There's no experience to me that's ever wasted. And as a teacher, or if you're in education, you have the opportunity to bring all of that to the table when you're working with kids. And I say all that to say, I'm sure, did you ever, and I'm sure you did, just knowing your personality for the couple times we met, I'm sure you've done this. Did you ever walk into your class and do a little something with your trumpet?
Oh, yeah.
You see, that's what I'm saying.
I played in a jazz band.
Okay.
Yes, I played in a jazz band with my students and,
See, and that takes to a whole. I've walked in an assembly program or something and got up on the piano and started playing, and the kids were blown away. They were shocked. Like, we didn't know you played piano. We didn't. But it connects you with your audience or the kids in a totally different way when you have all these different experiences and talents or whatever, that because kids only see us as teachers or principals or whatever.
Yes, that's it. They put you in that one box.
Right. So, and I tease people all the time. I said, you have to see how the kids react when they see us in the supermarket. They lose their minds.
Just a little sidebar. I went to the Philadelphia Comic Convention. It's about 3 weeks ago. And I dressed up as Nick Fury. So I had my big leather coat on and, eye patch. And I had my son, he was a little Spider-Man. I had my baby girl, she was a little field agent and everything. So we walk around, take pictures and everything. And so this one little group of people said, can we take a picture of you? Sure. So they came over and this one girl's like, man, you look a lot like my old principal I had in elementary school. So I lifted up my iPad and said, it is me, Mr. Bollar. She said, oh my goodness. Oh, scared to death. She was like, if she couldn't take it, she'd giggle herself to goodness.
But they do. If they see us out of the school context or see us in the store, I mean, first off, I don't think they think we're human. That's the first thing. But yes, we have to shop. We have to go to the grocery store. We have to go to the mechanic. We have to just like
eat.
Yeah. So, but I mean, the connections that are made through the various experiences brings a lot to the table. So I tell you what, it's 7 o'clock. If you have a couple more minutes to hang out, I want to talk about the whole naming of Stand Tall and the badges and everything, because I still have my 5-10 pin. I wear it every now and again just to start conversation and have some fun with it. So I want to talk about that, talk about the whole Stand Tall, what that's all about. So if you hang out for a second, I just need to share the weather with the folks again and all that stuff, because it's the top of the hour. So if you hang out, we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
WPSC, Wayne, New Jersey. On the radio, 88.7 FM. Online, gobrave.org. A tune-in radio station. Part of the William Patterson Broadcast Network.
Broadcasting live from Hobart Hall in Wayne, New Jersey.
This is
The innovative.
I think they're really unique.
The fearless.
They have awesome variety.
The kick-ass.
I love Brave New Radio.
The sensational.
I've never heard anything like it.
This is the one and only Brave New Radio.
Here's your North Jersey weather report.
Right now, 61.8 degrees, and we are working our way up to a high of 68. Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, 81. We are working our way up to a high of 81, a low of 53 tonight. Then tomorrow on Sunday, partly cloudy skies during the morning hours, a little bit cooler. 59 is a high, 50 is a low. Then on Monday, 74 is a high, 62 is a low. Tuesday, 69, 51. We're going to have intervals of clouds and sunshine on Tuesday during the day, clearing up on Tuesday night. Partly to mostly cloudy on Wednesday. That rounds out the forecast here at the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center. On those, a couple of those days, expect a little bit of rain or some cloudiness, so you might want to carry an umbrella with you. All right, if you have not been with us since 6, which I hope you have, because I've had a lively and engaging conversation with my guest, Stephen A. Bollar. He's an educator as well as a motivational speaker and author. And we've been talking about a lot of different things over the hour. And now that, we're down into the last segment or so of the interview, there is a part, because if you were with us, we were talking about this whole notion of naming things, tagging it so that people can remember it. And part of Steve's business, because as I said, we talked about him being very tall with the 6'7" height. A part of his business is called Stand Tall Steve. So, Steve, let's talk a little bit about where did that whole thing come from and what is it about?
Yeah, well, it came about when I earlier in the hour we were talking about when I went to the NSA National Conference for the very first time. And when I was there and I sat down at lunch and there was this group of speakers who were there, and we started sharing and talking about when you're in speaking, what is your niche? Who are you? What's your hook? What is your connection? What is this? What is this? And I was like, I don't know. They're like, all right, well, what do we know the second that we see you? I said, well, you see that I'm tall. Tall. All right. You're tall. You're grand. Everybody sees you. And I was like, well, my name's Steve. And then through that, they're like, Stand Tall Steve. I'm like, Stand Tall Steve. And then we said, okay, well, what does that really mean? It's one thing to have, a nice little brand.
Right.
But it's got to mean something.
Right.
And, so we were sitting, we were talking about that, and I started thinking about my life, because the best way to, to really get a message across is through stories.
It's correct.
Stories connect with people. People like to hear stories. I mean, it goes back as far as the language goes. When you have language, you can bring about stories. It gives reflection. It gives understanding. It brings connection. So I started, when I came back from the conference, I started to really think, what events took place in my life to make me who I am? And were they relevant enough to share with others and helping them? And so I started writing down the stories that took place in my life, and it really connected in that it's a major piece of who I am is being tall and going through that transformation in life to become a tall person.
Right.
You were there in my speech. I said, I didn't want to be tall. I did not want this at all.
That's right.
You growing up and, you want to blend in with everybody else. You want to be a part of the crew. You want to be, and here I am just boing, you see it very clearly. And because of that, I started to slouch. I started to hunch my back over to try not to stand out. And through various experiences, getting punched in the back is one of them, I started to realize, I'm a leader. And leaders aren't supposed to blend in.
Right.
Leaders are not supposed to blend in. That's not your job. Your job is to stand out. Your job is to stand tall. And I started to look at the type of leaders that are out there, and that's what they do, metaphorically, stand tall. Their job is to step out there. Their job is to be seen within the crowd. And you do that by standing tall, and that's why I really gravitated to, I was very fortunate. My parents named me Steve, and it kind of gives a nice little rhyme to it. But, stand tall, Steve, and that's what it's all about, and standing tall. And the button things, the little things you would mention, the tags for your listeners, what I do is at the end of my speeches, I have these buttons, little tiny 1-inch buttons, and they have on there a height. So I have something from 4'11" all the way up to 6'8". And I give it to everybody for free. Like, this is
correct.
Your little tag, your little button, little memory to remind you to stand tall. And it's a great conversation piece for nothing else. But the way I came out with that is, I looked at teachers, because I speak in this mostly in the educational industry. And what do teachers have around their neck all the time? A lanyard.
That's correct.
Their ID. And what's on their lanyard? Pins and buttons.
Right.
So you know what? I'm going to get me a button to give the teachers so they can have it as a reminder. That's what
right.
Teachers do. So that's how it kind of came about with the buttons, and it's a little reminder. And it is branding as well. I mean, if you look at the button at the bottom, it has my web address or whatever on it. But the main focus is to just keep that whole concept of standing tall. And then I grabbed the tagline: "When you stand tall, you don't think small."
There you go. And
stand
see,
tall,
that message for children is so important because, as you just said, kids want to fit in. They want it now. I guess they call it being down. They want to be down. Mm-hmm. And they don't want to stand out, not realizing that in their minds, they think they're not fitting in by some of the things that they do. Mm-hmm. When in reality, when they're going along with the crowd, in other words, what I share with my kids all the time, I say, all right, you think you're rebelling. You think you're so different and so rebellious, but at the same time, you're doing everything everyone else does. So if everybody else is fighting or everybody else is being bad, everybody else is cursing, everybody else is doing this and you go along with it, that's easy to do.
That's easy.
Right. So, but if you want to, right. So if you want to be the standout and have some courage, you would have to do the opposite of what they're doing. And when we had that kind of conversation, it kind of clicks for them. So your message in terms of it's okay to stand out, it's okay to be different, is a very important message, especially whenever we're trying to curb behavior or from an educational standpoint. As you know, for too many kids, it's not smart to be cool. I mean, it's not cool to be smart.
Yeah. I received that a lot.
Yeah, it's not like they'll dumb themselves down. Literally, you have a very intelligent kid that will dumb him or herself down so that they don't look like the nerd or the geek or the this, that, and the other. Mm-hmm. So the message is, it's all right for you if you're smart, it's okay. If you're intelligent, it's fine. Just stand out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's okay to be different. It's okay. So I dealt with that, growing up. And I did. I used to dumb myself down in order to fit in.
Right.
And I remember, in situations and stuff, and they're like, and I'm sitting there thinking, y'all the dumbest idiots I've ever seen in my life. This is the stupidest idea I ever heard in my life. But what comes out of my mouth? Yeah, man,
that's
cool.
right.
That's cool, bro. Yeah,
that's right.
Let's do that. And they're thinking, this fool going to get us killed. So... Yeah, but with that message of, you know what, it's okay. You can be different. You're
right.
The thing is, in the options nowadays for kids to be a part of different groups and different interests is so huge. And
right.
Why not take advantage of those things? Why not? No,
it's absolutely
really
right.
It's a big piece of what I talk about. Yeah.
No, and it is, and like I said, it is critical because so many of them will do something that they really don't want to do for the sake of fitting in. And I think the more kids really get to understand that, you know what, if you don't want to fit in, that's all right, the better off everybody will be. Not to mention for the folks who like to make fun of the folks who in their minds don't fit in, it would change them as well. In other words, like you have a lot of various groups, regardless of what the group is, that get ostracized. I mean, in these days, we have every kind of group going. But because you don't fit in, a lot of times you have folks who will, they'll pick at you or ostracize you for not feeling. What that will do when more people begin to accept the fact that it's all right to be different, it will change that group as well.
Yes.
So, yeah.
It's a catalyst within the group that causes the change. It slowly changes because of, the one voice of reason that's in that group, or the one, thinks a little different. Don't be afraid to speak up and say something. Don't be afraid to act as you think really it should be.
No, that's absolutely right. I mean, I get kids kind of, I had to get my hit back. You had to get your hit back. You had to. Well, what would have happened if you didn't get your hit back? and so it's like, what if you just turned around and said, all right, it's not that I don't want to, but I'm not. What kind of reaction you think you would have gotten then? and so, it is an extremely important message for kids and adults, for that matter. It works for adults as well. I share with my teachers, I laugh whenever you talk about the way New Jersey is set up. Steve, I grew up in Paterson. Paterson's the third largest city in the state of New Jersey.
Right.
And as a kid, I always saw on our license plates the Garden State. And I did not understand how come we would call it, because I didn't see any gardens. Not in Paterson.
Gardens around here.
I didn't see any gardens in Paterson. But as I was stationed down at McGuire Air Force Base whenever I was in the Air National Guard. And every time I would drive down there, I started going into like the New Egypts and the Wrightstowns and the Salems and all that. Yeah, exactly.
There's the gardens right there. But I could just see you. I wish I would have been in that car. You could talk about, you probably pulled over, didn't you?
Yeah, that's right. That's why I said, now I see why we're called a Garden State. But but as a kid, we barely saw grass, and you talking about gardens.
Gardens. That's too funny.
Well, I have had an absolute blast speaking with you. What I do for the last part of the interview is I turn the mic over to the guest, and you have your opportunity to shout out and promote. You can say anything with the exception of a dollar amount, but anything short of that, book signings, appearances, how to get in touch with you, any of that you can say. I shut the mic off, and you get a chance to promote all that you'd like, and like I said, with the exception of a dollar amount. So I'm going to shut the mic off, and you have the opportunity to promote Stand Tall Steve or anything else.
All right. Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to come on here and talk to you and to share with your listeners. As I said, I've been doing public speaking for quite some time. I am a working superintendent of schools, so this is something that I do because it's a passion of mine. I'm not doing it to get rich. I'm not doing it for the other than the fact that sharing the message that I have with others. So I do speak mostly in the youth industry, but I also speak corporately as well. I have 2 to 3 different keynotes as well as some breakout sessions. For those who are in education, specifically principals, this coming July, there is the National Principals Conference. It's going to be in Philadelphia. It's the first time that they're taking the Elementary Principals Conference and the Secondary Principals Conference, blending it together. I am going to be there. My session is on the 9th. They gave me an early time, 7:45. In the morning. Look for it. It's the Ideas session. Later on in that same day, I am going to have a book signing at the book resource area. So if you're going to the National Principals Association conference, I will be there. I'll be doing my session, Ideas, followed by a book signing on that same day in the book area. My book will also be available there. If you're interested in getting my book, there's 2 different ways you can go about doing that. You can go to jostens.com, and if you go to their store through their resources, it is available there. Also, you can go to my website, www.standtallsteve.com. Very simple, standtallsteve.com. And I have a link that says book. It's simple and easy. You click on there, and you can just go through there through PayPal, and you can get the book. And if you purchase it through me, I will sign the book personally. If you go through Johnston's, unfortunately, they don't have my signature on it, but I'll sign it for you there. If you're interested in having me come out and talk to your organization, your group, I speak from youth, elementary, even. I tailor to elementary all the way up through college and adult, professional development to schools as well, or any kind of organization. Just go to my website, www.standtallsteve.com, and through there, just send in interest, and you can get a hold of me. I'll get right back to you. I do all my own booking. I do all my own contracts. I get everything done on my own. So, I do this. I do have to be selective in which ones I go to, because, again, like I said before, I'm a working superintendent, and I have to be at my schools to make sure I'm there. So it's very exciting. Love to do anything for you, help you out, help you stand tall. And remember, when you stand tall, you don't think small. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, again, as I said, it has been an absolute blast. Any of you, if you have the opportunity to hear Stephen present, like I said, he's hilarious. He actually could be a stand-up comedian. He really could, because it's his delivery. And as he said, a lot of times through story and through humor is how people remember. So if you get an opportunity to either book Steve to come to your venue or either go to one of the conferences he's in, you'll see what I'm talking about, because that day I went down to the conference. It was a fatherhood conference, and I left there enriched by particularly the keynote speakers. I went to the breakout sessions, and they were good as well. But the two keynote speakers, which was Dr. Perry in the morning and Stephen in the afternoon, they were really rich. So I thank you, Stephen, for taking the time. And again, listening audience, you have everything. Like I said, it's very simple to get in touch with him. Just put Stand Tall Steve in Google and it'll go there.
It'll go right there.
It'll go right there. And so do that. Definitely. And I'm going to get ideas. And I can tell you now, I'm going to use some of your ideas in my school.
There you go.
And, so, and I'll definitely be in touch in terms of the whole motivational public speaking thing. I may have to find that conference, the same one Jolly told you about. I'm going to have to find that conference and go myself.
Oh, yeah. That's it. Reach out to me, and I'll get you the information that you need for that.
Okay. All right. Well, I tell you, man, have a wonderfully blessed day. I wish nothing but the best for you and yours.
You too.
And we'll be in touch.
All right. Very good.
All right. Take care.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Bye now. I wrap up each week saying, well, there's another edition of the Reading Circle with Marc Medley. Had a wonderful time with Stephen. I'm telling you, he is hilarious. If you see him present, the combination of everything works. The height, his delivery, the tone of voice, the story itself. They're meaningful stories, but they come off in a humorous manner. And like I said, he is funny as heck. He could be a stand-up comedian. He really could. But he's about the business of education. And the points that he makes are valid. And if you could get the passion and the energy as a teacher, I'm telling you, students connect with energy. They don't do well whenever we come into the classrooms flat. They really don't. As teachers and administrators, as we come into those classrooms flat, that's what we get back. But if you show energy when you go in, the kids will give you energy back. They will. But that's a hard sell. And for somebody who's been doing it for 20, 30 years, and then they may not have that energy anymore, I know it's a tough sell. But if somehow they can conjure up the energy, as he said, every 40 minutes is a party. That's exactly the attitude. And somewhere in there, maybe I'll quote it on Twitter or in Facebook today. But every 40 minutes in that classroom ought to be a party. Each time the new set of kids come in, we're starting another party. That's the kind of energy you got to have. And it is difficult with all the other nonsense that we have to do in education. It is. I'll be the first to admit that. But if you can do it, you would get the results that we're looking for.